Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. I thought I would take a moment to record a video about the assignment for you so that you know what you're doing, most importantly. Before I start, even though you're not here in the room with me, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on here today. This is really important for me and the work that I do because it is a sign of respect for the obvious disadvantages that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people still face on a daily basis in relation to policing and criminal justice processes. They're still significantly overrepresented at every level of those criminal justice systems and will continue to be unless we do something about it. Some people have called this now a national emergency. So it's absolutely vital that we think and speak about these things at every opportunity that we have. Okay, so today I'm talking about the assignment for HSP325 for you. And as per usual, I like to use really daggy, crappy little graphics. You can see here I've got a dude thinking about a scenario, and then I've got a nice picture of a library, and then another person thinking about critical analysis, and then a person typing. And this is because these are all of the components that you need to put together in order to type up your response, which is a critical analysis of a management approach. I will actually explain what that means. The due date at this point is still to be advised, but it is likely to be after the residential at this particular point. I'm still waiting to hear back from folks at the Police Academy. Fingers crossed they come back on Monday, and they could tell me when it is actually going to be due. The word count is 2,000 words, excluding references, and the weighting is 20%. Now, what you need to do is you need to come up with some sort of response of around 2,000 words, and it can be your choice of format. I've actually given you a choice for this assignment. You can submit an essay following the structure with all of the writing that I'm going to give you in a moment. You can do a PowerPoint presentation, and you can audio record a presentation that way, or put your notes in the slides, or you might like to do a video where you just sit there with the webcam on you and you're speaking to a script of some sort. Whatever. If you come up with something even better, tell me. I want to hear about it because it's going to be so super more exciting than bloody essays. But if you do just want to do an essay, that's totally fine as well. So once you've picked your format, then you need to respond to what we're doing. Policing in the 21st century is more complex and intellectually demanding. It necessitates police supervisors be equipped with more than technical capabilities. So there's that kind of soft stuff that I was talking about in the police supervision lecture that I did. And in particular, with a high level range of decision making and leadership skills. In this assignment, you'll need to critically analyse approaches to the management of a policing colleague who required support. Now, this is how we're going to do it. It's going to be a series of steps. I thought this was the best way to spell it out so you knew exactly what I was looking for. First, you need to choose your scenario, and I'm not going to give them to you because I'm evil and I like to make you think. I'm actually going to make you guys come up with the scenarios. I'm sure you've all heard about scenarios. It doesn't even need to be in your workplace in policing. It can be somewhere completely different. But you need to come up with and share a scenario on the discussion board as part of your learning activities of the management of a policing colleague in some sort of setting that required support. So one of your learning activities is to share a scenario that you've worked through or heard about, and to read other scenarios that students post online. From the examples that you read online, including your own, you just pick one. It's pretty simple. Second, you need to choose your format for your assignment. Now, I've already talked through the range of different things that you might be able to do. PowerPoint presentation that pre-record and upload, choose a video that you want to do, whatever, really, it's up to you. Any of these options are great, and if you have any other ideas, just get in touch. I'm happy to chat with you about it. Third, Once you have chosen your format and you've chosen your scenario, now you need to prepare your critical analysis of the management approach. This is discussing how the situation was managed and whether different approaches may have led to improved outcomes. I've got a suggested structure for you that I'll talk through in a moment. After that, you need to make sure you're using proper academic referencing. That's regardless of whether or not it's in an essay, in a PowerPoint, or in a video. So if you've got an essay, straightforward, hopefully all of you know now how to write an essay. If you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, then you need to include your references on your PowerPoint slides, okay? Like you'll see other people do when they're giving lectures. And then usually the last slide, you can put a list of references. Perfect. If you're doing a video and that you're not actually having a PowerPoint presentation, then I'd suggest that you put your references into your talk. So Thompson 2012 says that supervision can be a real pain in the backside. And then upload a separate list of references with your submission so that it can be marked. So it's just a couple of different ways of thinking about how to reference these different formats. Most importantly though, you must have your references to your research literature to support your points that you're making in your critical analysis, or it won't be a critical analysis. That's pretty key. And then of course you upload to Milo by the due date. So just clarifying, I get to choose the format? Yes, you do, and it's going to be totally awesome. You get to choose the scenario? Absolutely, and you're going to get to do a little bit of creativity around that stuff. Please be mindful of confidentiality when you are sharing your scenario information. No names, please. Please be mindful that it is a small policing organisation and that others will be able to read your posts. So making sure that you de-identify as much as possible the situation that you are speaking about. That is why it might be useful to use a situation that you've read somewhere else or that you've heard from somewhere else interstate, whatever, really. It's totally fine. So, suggested structure. You need to have some sort of introduction. Again, this is regardless of what you actually choose to do. And if the word counts below in these slides that I'm using, they're not hard limits, they're just suggested word counts. Having said that, if you hand in a 5-minute video, you're probably going to get marked down because it's not going to meet the 2,000 word count. So you need an introduction, 1 paragraph, making sure that you've got a nice roadmap about what you're actually going to discuss in your presentation or in your essay. Then make sure you outline your scenario. About 200 words is usually good. Then you talk about how the scenario is managed. This is where you discuss what decisions were made, what resources were put into place, what did the person doing that was supervised, what was the supervisor doing? What resources were needed? What forms of support were required for the staff member? How long did the situation require management? All of these different types of things are things that you need to outline here. After that, you need to critically analyse how the scenario was managed. What were the things that stood out to you as being really big stuff-ups? Did the person yell at the person that needed support? Was that a stuff-up? Was it a fault of their leadership style? Was it something different in that the organisational policies didn't help support the process that was happening? So think about what went well and what didn't go well. What different approaches perhaps might have improved the outcomes of this circumstance. Now, this is going to be hard for you to think about. You need to be able to read quite a bit about how to manage difficult staff, how to manage certain scenarios that come up in the workplace. It might be domestic violence, it might be a person who's abusing alcohol and other drugs, whatever. It might be a person who is using the wrong type of leadership style with other police officers and is making their life a living hell. Whatever the situation is, you're going to have to think about it and read about it a lot to be able to do this critical analysis appropriately. So think about What does the research literature say about how the organisation managed the scenario in line with best practice? Alternatively, was their management approach grounded in the research evidence at all? What would have you done to improve the management of that scenario? Make sure you include your references in these points to support your ideas. After you've done that, that's about 1,000 words. That's the majority of your response, folks. Then you need to conclude, summarising your key points, and your recommendation about how you might manage these things in future would be really useful. And of course, don't forget your list of references. Some general tips for you here. You can use first person, totally fine. There's a lot of research around police supervision. Make sure you've worked through the learning activities and you've done the readings that you start off with, but it would be good to have a few more readings under your belt. Go further, do some additional readings about the specific scenario that you're focusing on. Be sure to include specific discussion of your chosen scenario, all right? Chances are you'll find some good wording and it's fairly straightforward. A lot of people forget these types of very simple things and then you'll lose marks. Make sure you do that. Be sure to connect the parts of your critical analysis of your scenario with your readings and your literature around police supervision. Absolutely vital for ticking the critical analysis box. This is how you analyse police practice in terms of the ideas about police supervision. For example, you might recount a scenario involving family violence with an officer. Then tell the reader about how the research literature links with that specific type of scenario and how it's been managed in a police organisation in the past. And, of course, you would do this by referencing the research literature in different places. Finally, make sure you include enough references. Even in a PowerPoint presentation or a presentation where you're talking to the camera, you need to include this. And I've talked a little bit about how you can do this on the slides. So when I talk about the rubric, I'm talking about the marking rubric that tells you, use 10 references, etc., etc. We're going to talk through that now. So, our first criteria that we need to have a look at is around, or our learning outcome is justify and critically analyse approaches to providing initial and ongoing support to people in working environments, policing working environments. So we need to identify procedural and departmental support mechanisms relevant to the situation, and we need to explain the impact these types of support types are likely to have. So, if you're aiming for a HD, you have a clear discussion of a number of specific procedural and departmental support mechanisms relevant to the scenario when you're talking about that scenario, okay? With clear references to specific department documents and relevant research literature. When you're explaining the impact, you need to make sure you've got a clear discussion of a number of specific points, critically analysing the impact that different types of support are likely to have in the scenario. So the first thing might be, well, that person was yelling at that person and that was a really bad form of leadership. The second thing might be that they just had one conversation with them and then didn't provide any ongoing support. The third thing might be that they didn't give them flexible working environments and allow them to go home at certain times of the day or come back at certain times of the day. They might be your 3 critical analysis points, so your 3 paragraphs that you're writing. I hope that makes sense. So it needs to be specific if you want that higher level mark for this assignment, with clear references to relevant research literature. Next, you need to be able to inform your approach with different leadership and communication styles that are suited to that supervisory role within a police organisation. So making sure that you are citing your literature, most importantly, to support your claims about leadership styles, and then identifying approaches to communicating with relevant parties. So citing 10 references is your ballpark here, folks. Make sure you keep that in mind when you're writing and you're doing your presentation. Identifying approaches to communicating with relevant parties, making sure you have a clear discussion of a number of specific communication leadership styles, specifically relevant to the scenario, with clear references to relevant research literature. Now, that doesn't mean you have a whole section on that. That means you weave that through your conversation, through your PowerPoint or your essay. That the communication and leadership stuff needs to be woven throughout. It's not a specific section. So that's how you tick that box. All right. Then we have a lovely little box called Addressing the Set Task, which is where you define your concepts, you're using your Harvard referencing style, appropriate expression in English conventions, all of those types of things. Pretty basic, straightforward stuff. And we are done. I hope that was helpful and gave you something to work from. If you need any help at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Email is my best contact. You can also call me if you need to at any time. If you prefer a face-to-face chat and you can't come to my office, certainly give me a heads up and we can organise a time to have a Skype. But if you've got any questions, get in touch. I hope that was helpful. See you later, guys.